Welcome to Soul Brothers, where it is our job to throw you into the Solana rabbit hole and introduce you to some exciting people in the ecosystem.
Our mission is to take you on the latest and greatest so that you never get frozen smoking a shisha pipe while on stream. Hi.
Welcome, guys. Today we have a very special EP, honestly. So the person that is on today's pod is someone that I perceive as just a hustler on the Solana eco. And many people don't know him very well, I feel like, because he's a bit in the shadows, just like, behind his PFP doing magical internet things. And the purpose of today's show is just to bring a little bit of light into this personality and learn a little bit more about our dear friend, Seb. So, Seb, welcome to the show. Welcome to Soul Brothers. It's good to have you here, and we're really excited to talk to you about all the crazy things you do on Solana. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks,
100% disagree. Everybody knows who the fuck Seb is. Seb is all over the goddamn place. But no, I hear what you mean, Simon. Like, obviously, he doesn't have his meat face on for his PFP. It's a Radiance DAO PFP. A lot of ground to cover, and the reason why you have so much ground to cover is because Seb has done, at least by my count, 10 different projects on Solana with dozens of different with a crazy amount of initiatives. Obviously, FaZe Labs has evolved quite a bit over that period of time. Like the core business and like the different ancillary businesses that he's been working on have changed and evolved and grown. And so like we're here to be in conversation with Seb and to get the full story from start to finish, and also just get to know Seb a little bit better. He's got a magnificent mustache, a great personality. Seb, how are you, my friend?
No, I'm good, dude. I'm so excited to be here with the both of you, absolute legends. And yeah, honestly, just like feeling grateful. It's been an incredible year so far, and I think it's just been, cool to see your guys' growth as well. Simon and Solana ID, you at Sanctum and all the other things you're doing. Just like at every event, like emceeing, it's just crazy. It's so cool to see, dude. Like you've really, really just grown so much. So, yeah, I feel honored to be among legends like yourselves.
Here's some fun facts about Seb. As you can already tell by his yaw, he is definitely from South Africa. As you might be able to tell, he's a proud South African that is potentially moving to Austin because he's been talking about this a little bit recently. He's also 400 days sober as of January 2024. Well, I don't know if you're still on that streak.
I did break that streak. I did do 450 days sober, and then okay. I started drinking again, not like badly, like I didn't have a problem. The reason I stopped was just I'll get into that, but it was at Singapore, and but just that's a nice segue. Like essentially the reason I stopped drinking was actually because it was a part of my networking plan when I did the circuit in like 2023, 2024. Was like I was like, okay, cool. As you mentioned, I'm from South Africa. I moved to America about 4 years ago. I'm very fortunate to have a green card. That's obviously like, but where was a better place to meet a credit career in this industry than I was here? So essentially, I was like, you know what? If I am going to move here, I had nothing. I was broke as fuck. Sorry, excuse me, I don't know if I can swear, but I was super broke. I was just doing some commercials, like acting in commercials, and that made me a little bit of money. But other than that, I had basically like nothing. And I was just like, you know what? I have the time now. I'm staying at my brother's place, like sleeping on an air mattress on the floor. Literally, my back took me years to recover from that. In this apartment in LA, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go at this as hard as humanly possible. So I just started working in the space, finding jobs, and just grinding. And then started going to events. And I was just like, you know what? No one remembers what you say after, like, 10 p.m., dude, or 9:30. When there's an open bar. Like after a certain period of time, everyone's so drunk, the conversations aren't valuable. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just like not going to drink. I'm just going to literally focus on networking. I left every party before everyone started getting drunk so that I knew that I would make good connections. And it worked really, really well. So
interesting.
Yeah. So that's a part of Seb's story that he likes to gloss over a little bit, but I think is super fascinating that he was in entertainment for a very, very long time. And I mean, it wasn't just acting commercials. Weren't you in music for a little bit as well, or am I crazy?
No. I was you can actually, if you go on Spotify and you type in Sebastian Moriarty, you'll find some of my music, and then if you want to go really down the rabbit hole, if you type in Second Nature, like one word, second nature, one word. You'll find my old techno project. But yeah, I was a producer for years and DJ for years back in South Africa, and also ran like event companies. Like me and my friend used to run a company called Magnifique, and even in high school we were running like these parties, and we would literally set up venues like Alice in Wonderland, Cartoon Network, like Rick and Morty. We used to like Christmas in July. We'd do like these Drake parties, and we'd literally set up the whole club with like stuff hanging from the ceilings, like massive displays. Like it was really, really sick. So did that for a long time, and then have been acting in commercials since I was a kid. Because my parents, my mom, my dad, my brother, my uncle, all in the film industry. So it just kind of was like came naturally, right? Like getting into that kind of thing. Like, and then that led to me, after doing events for a while, getting to commercial acting. I did video editing at a casting studio as well, which is kind of interesting. Just like not to go down a rabbit hole, but it was pretty interesting because like when you're in a casting studio, right? Like, and you're watching these actors come in and these people come in to act for commercials or cast for commercials, right? You really get to see who's good, who isn't, what they did well. And then, I also sit to work with the directors, some really, really prominent like advertising directors, working with like a huge, what's that guy? I forget his name now, but anyway, so that was really interesting, and that helped kind of like expand my ability to like act in these commercials. So I worked with like Jack Daniels and Coca-Cola and brands like Kaufland in Germany and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so a little bit of music and acting involved there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a backstory that a lot of people don't know about, and that's exactly what I was referring to in the intro. A lot of people, they know who you are on Solana, right? But they don't know who's behind Zep. That is the Twitter personality behind the PFP. And now you're on your Solana arc.
Yeah.
For some reason, you ended up here. What was the moment that flipped the script? Like, because coming from this, you said you struggled. You kind of sleeping on mattresses on the floor, fucking up your back. Totally fine to swear on this podcast, by the way. And then you found Solana, this holy thing, and for some reason you are now involved, as Eno said as well, in a lot of things. And I would love now at the beginning still of this pod to just quickly try to break down what things do you have your hands in on Solana right now, and then from there we can double tap on a few of these.
I also one thing too. I mean, if you could somehow add this into your story, I'd love to hear about Radiance DAO and like kind of the origin, because that to me kind of feels like the genesis story. I mean, it's not the first thing you've ever done, but it's like just kind of curious how that all fits together, because you literally have a cabal. It's like the Radiance cabal.
Okay, let me. So I'll work this all in together. So essentially, the moment for me for Web3, right? And before was just like, doing a multitude of different things. Also started my own like textile company with a friend of mine. We did like custom mouse pads, desk pads. So that's that arc, right? Like acting, music, working in the film industry, and doing some entrepreneurial stuff. A friend of mine who's actually a very prominent DJ in South Africa, his name's Ryan Hill. He showed me his tire robotics. I was kind of interested by crypto in 2021, right? Like with ETH, NFTs and everything that was happening, like Top Shots. And at the end of that year, he was talking to me about Solana, and he showed me his tire robotics. And I was like, and they were like, what is it? 100 something SOL. And I was like, dude, what? Like, how did that happen? Like, he's like, yo, I bought them for like 7 SOL. Now to put that into perspective, right? But that's like, I don't know, like $700 or something, or $800. In South Africa, that's like, or was it more? It was like $8,000. I don't know. It was just a lot of money in Rand. Like, I think he had like 150, 200,000 Rand worth of NFTs. And I was like, that's insane. You bought them for this much? So that started the wheels turning. And it was more so like, I got into trade, like NFTs in early 2022. Like, I started trading in January of 2022. But then as I started to like, get deeper, I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like, there's actually a lot of really cool stuff happening here. It's not just like smoke and mirrors, right? Yes, obviously there's all this money being thrown around and there's these NFTs minting, and it's a little bit ridiculous. But I was like, this is a place where you can like make a name for yourself. And it's like, I forget, what book was I reading? I don't know if it was a book, but it was this podcast by Naval Ravikant. I'm sure you guys know Naval Ravikant. Mm-hmm. His podcast with Joe Rogan like literally changed my life. And I know it sounds so cliche and so like corny, but it legit did. And I think there was something he said in there, which is like, there's like a time and place and like early opportunities and I just remember thinking to myself, like, dude, this is the opportunity. Like, let me just go full swing in this. And yeah, I essentially did a couple different projects in the early days. I worked for something called, it was like the first raffle platform on Solana. What are they called? I forget their name. They had like these totem NFTs with RevShare. So that was the first project I worked on. Like, they literally started raffles for NFTs on Solana. So they had a raffle system. You pay Sol, you get tickets to win like an NFT. And then that arc took off, and then everyone started doing raffles for the NFT platforms. Then I started working on it. I left that and I started working on a project called CrowdSurf, which was another guy who came to the space, and he built like this system that was all about like diamond handing, almost like Acadians. And that was really what helped me kind of like get my foot in and like learn a lot. And we actually were building some really cool tech. Like the first pre-sale platform on Solana ever was under them. Like and then like, what is it? Pengu, Pengsol, those guys started doing it as well. But I moved on off that project just because they wanted to go in a weird approach. And during that year, I met the guys from some of the guys from Phase Labs, which was like Devour and Mint. Professor Mint, they kind of started it off. And then Chemo joined and Slorg. And then myself, who was helping to derug Balloonsville with Sock, who's the founder of Raposa. Yeah, I know. So a lot of little things there. You can see a trend here. I just do as much as I can until I find the right people. And then I was like, okay, well, we need a way to differentiate this project, because obviously it kind of got like, he was a mod for Balloonsville, Sock. And obviously Chartfu was like one of the guys imagining who was like helping take over Balloonsville, right? And in my mind, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. If I can maybe help these guys as well, like if I can help turn over the worst rug in Solana history, then I can do anything. That was my thinking. And yeah, it was very hard. But anyway, so then I brought them to meet the Phase guys, because it was like, okay, there needs to be a differentiator for this project. Like maybe Balloonsville goes into like derug investigating, rugs in the space, which is something that one of my co-founders, Devour and Slorg from Jupe was doing. So I thought that would be a cool angle. But then it ended up us joining for Phase Labs. Long story short, other people, went on to do their own things. Chemo, Slorg, Jupe, Sock, Raposa, and then me, Devour, Dan, and Mint stayed on in Phase. And now I'll get into Radiance. Okay. Radiance was an idea that was like formulated during those Phase Labs years in 2022. And essentially it was something that Chemo was thinking about, was like some kind of auction platform. And that didn't really come into fruition until like 2024, where Chemo really kind of took the reins, and Devour helped him as well. And we kind of were like, cool, let's do this thing. Like, this idea, burn NFTs, receive a Radiant, absorb projects, use the technology, and then expand. and that's where kind of Radiant stems from. So I know that was quite a lot. It's like a lot of little elements there, but I would say essentially the most important things is after that year, 2022 really was when I started focusing more on Phase Labs. And there was something else I did in 2023. But I'll first let you guys have any questions, because it's just like it gets convoluted if I just keep going.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's obviously a lot of notable folks that you're talking about. Like if you're in Solana at all, you would obviously not only know Seb, but you would know his cadre of folks that he works with and collaborates with, which includes Chemo Sabe or Chemo, Slorg the Slug, aka Slorg, Devour, just Devour, I suppose. Unless he has a longer nom de guerre that I'm not aware of. Who are some other? And obviously, Sock is doing amazing things over at Raposa Coffee. And Balloonsville is not a project that I've heard of in a long time. Like a very, very, those houses used to cost so much, bro. Like Jesus effing Christ.
I know, dude. That's actually a hilarious story that you brought the houses up. So when they did the houses mint, I got the ranked number one house. And I put a message in their server to be like, hey, I would happy to help out with social media and stuff. And basically the one day, like a few weeks later, I listed it to sell it. And then I get a message from Sock. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, he saw me list the house. Oh no, dude, he's going to call me out because I listed the number one rank house. And he's just like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, oh, thank God, dude. Don't know who's gonna call me out for listing a fucking NFT. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like Balloonsville, for people who don't remember, was like an NFT collection that was quite different in the sense that it wasn't like generative PFPs like of different characters. It was like houses, and like couldn't you upgrade the houses and stuff like that? Or am I crazy? Is my memory wrong?
Well, the thing is, so I don't know if this after the dereg happened, right? The houses were added, then you put your balloons into the houses, and they would increase the staking yield. And the thing about Balloonsville was kind of like, just to talk candidly about it, it was kind of like set to fail, right? I feel like in a lot of ways, because it was like after the rug happened, right? It was seeded with a bunch of money for the liquidity pool, and then basically handed off to people to run. So the initial idea of having that liquidity pool, and we all know what happens to basically every project that had a liquidity pool and people could earn tokens from, it just like drains the liquidity pool. So you would put the balloons in the house and you get a multiplier on your tokens earned. So that was kind of the dynamic there.
Yeah, I do miss NFT season only in the sense that like there were some really interesting ideas, right? Like they might not have been the smartest ideas, but like even that sentence makes no like Simon was still building on EVM at that time. It's like, yeah, the thing is you put more balloons in a house and then you get more staking yield. What the fuck are you talking about?
That was a crazy time, like Bad Robots or whatever. There were all those different little collections, and I remember people would make those sheets, like how much yield can you earn from each of these different collections. It was crazy, dude.
Yeah, no, it's truly a different time in Solana history. But yeah, Simon,
some Solana lore, some deep Solana lore here. When was that? Like what year are we talking?
2022, 2023.
Okay.
Time frame, yeah.
Quite early. Yeah.
Yeah. But
and then where did you end up today, Seb? Because that's a pretty, like you said, we can see a pattern, which is basically just seek and destroy kind of mindset. You're just going through life and you're like looking for opportunity. I actually love that. I think I actually maneuver my life in a very similar pattern. Honestly, I think it's just because we're both quite entrepreneurial, both outside of Web3 prior to Solana, and now with what we do today. And you still have that in you because you're still attaching so many different parts of the Solana stack, if I'm not mistaken. So where are you today? Like what would you say is like your top 3 items if we would have to place them in a ranking? What would be your top 3 items of focus right now nowadays?
So yeah, I mean, I think, and we can get into some of the other aspects of how we got you, but like really, Phase Labs is the main focus. And the products under it, like Sentinel, Aero, and Netrunner. Obviously, Netrunner being most important. That's our Solana tax tool. Aero pool as well, just like supporting delegated stake to ecosystem contributor validators in the ecosystem, and then Sentinel, the institutional grade validator stuff. But yeah, I mean, it would be Phase and everything we're doing under Phase, because that's really been the core underlying constant in this journey, right? Since 2022 to now to 2025, and all of those things help to like get to where I am now, and that's been really, really obviously helpful. But yeah, that would be the main focus.
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah.
But even getting to where you are with Sentinel, which is the institutional grade, white label validator, and then Aeropool, which is the stake pool, and then Netrunner, which is like the tax tool. I think mostly focused on the US, correct?
So actually, we have 12 jurisdictions.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So it's actually across 12 jurisdictions. We're looking to add another one as well, Nigeria. So we got USA, Canada, UK, Ireland, Spain, Italy, Germany, South Africa. Represent India, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. So it's kind of like that definitely made it harder because each of them have like separate kind of little like idiosyncrasies around their tax laws. So it's like managing for that has been a tough one, but we're there.
Yeah, but the real question I want to ask is that like how many different lines of business has Phase Labs launched and ran with, and then like I'm just because I think some people can see the success of Sentinel and Aeropool, and then I think Netrunner is still like in the beginning like stages.
Private beta.
Yeah, private beta. Right. So like I do believe that's going to be a great success, but like some people might see the current collection of 3 products and be like, oh my god, like how do I build a business like that? But what they don't see is like all the blood, sweat, tears that go into getting to that iteration of, I mean, Phase Labs has gone through, I mean, I hope you don't disagree with this characterization, but like Phase Labs has gone through an amazing evolution over the years, right? Like it's not like you always had this vision of like this is going to be, and I'm sure it's going to change as well, right? Like I'm sure there are a million other projects that you're working on. So like, would love to learn more about some of the other things that you've tried, what's went well, what's not, what hasn't gone well, and what the future might look like.
No, dude, 100%, and I do agree with you. I mean, I think it's been a real journey. And last thing I'll say is the last thing I did before like really fully focusing on Phase Labs and then Radiance was in 2023, which something I'm really proud of, which was like after that first year, 2022, learning everything was Seeds, which was a pre-sale platform that I built with a friend of mine. And that did really well. We bootstrapped that from the ground up. We did about 30 plus launches, $2.5 million in volume ran through the platform. And that was kind of like the entry point for me to be like, oh, wow, I can actually build something even myself. And that literally helped me survive in 2023. We tried our best to do like high quality NFT pre-sales. And we actually, by the end of the year, were like the most popular out of like Saba and Helio, great, obviously all great companies. Like they obviously did a lot of volume and a lot of NFTs, but you know, we were like kind of the most excitable one by the end of the year. So that was pretty awesome. But essentially, even in that time, right, while doing that, like, and why I bring up Seeds as well is with Phase, we've had a number of different products over the years, from 2022 to 2023 to 2024 to 2025. Like, so it was not a very straight shot or fluid journey in that sense, right? Like, Phase started in 2022. The first product was Phase Protocol. And I don't know if some people who've been in this space for a long time might have remembered there was that whole there was a /PFP initiative we did where like a lot of really prominent people put this slash across their PFP because our whole thing was like, well, we're a bunch of people who are helping to derug projects. Some of the guys do blockchain investigation. How do we protect people? And that's where Phase Labs stemmed from, was like how to protect investors and minters in Web3. So Phase Protocol, the first product was literally a escrow platform. So NFT project would mint. The funds would then go into an escrow protocol and it would get released in phases, like on their roadmap, right? They'd have to finish a certain whatever phase, whatever that works, would maybe create website, start staking, right? Then the community could veto vote once they've submitted that work, like links to the site, links to the staking site, and then they could be like, oh no, you guys did what you said you're going to do. Cool. And then basically the next phase of funding would get released. We tried really hard to get that to work. It was only like 2 projects that ever used it. But, you know, funny enough, projects didn't feel like they needed to lock up their funds because everyone would just throw money at them regardless. So why would you go for locking up? And we tried to change the mentality in the community, like doing this whole thing, like say no to rugs and all this kind of stuff. But there was mainly
say no to rugs.
Yeah, literally. That was like say no to rugs. Say no to rugs. And we even made a website that was like a kind of play on that, where it was like you were going to get rugged and you had to put your wallet address in a thing, in whatever, and then you would get it would automatically slash your PFP. But anyway, so we did that, and then what we did is we took that and we created a line out of it. And a line showed some more success, right? A line, it was is a governance platform. And the whole point of it was to to actually, where it started was to protect users from like projects using royalty funds inappropriately or not inappropriately, but on the wrong things, right? Slow rugs, and there was a problem, right? People would farm royalties hardcore from their holders. So the whole idea was, and this was in that time nearing up to when royalties were going away, right? Was like, cool, put the royalties in this platform, then the community can go on, they can connect, they can register with their NFT, and then they can create proposals. People can upvote and downvote the proposals, and it becomes like kind of like a Reddit style like DAO platform. We got a couple of projects on there, most notably like Bonk and a couple others, which was obviously really cool. And the way that we got to this point, to these 2 products, right, was winning hackathons. We placed like high in about 4 different hackathons, like either coming 4th, 3rd, or 2nd. I think we did win one. I don't know, I have to go double check. But that's literally what funded us through this time. That's why I had to do stuff like Seeds, because we literally, all the money we won, we would just give to our dev. because so that he could build out our stuff. I remember the one day we all had to chip money into. I mean, it's obviously maybe grossly overestimating how broke we were, but had to all put money together to buy him chicken wings for him so that he can carry on working because he loves chicken wings. But anyway, so this is kind of how we got to where we are, right? It was a lot of trial and error. So cool, Align kind of worked great. Then we wanted to do something called like IdeaPad, which was like a native staking platform. You could like stake SOL to an idea, and then it would get like matched. Like SOL would get matched, almost like a validator, and then like you could lock up your SOL for a certain amount of time, kind of like a GoFundMe, and then you could get access to this product at the end. So we kind of built that. It never came out, never came to fruition. We also did LilyPad. So we built LilyPad in tandem with the guys at how am I blanking? Pathfinders, right? So we built the tech, which is kind of a play on that IdeaPad product, which was LST-backed NFT launches. Mm-hmm. And this is something we bought, it was I think last year. And essentially, mint with an LST, you don't lose. This was kind of an improvement upon phase protocol. So you can kind of see the trend here. You mint with your LST. You can always burn that NFT to receive your original mint price back in the LST or in SOL. And then what happens though is the LST is 100% yield. So let's say with Pathfinders, right, the example, they minted 7,000 NFTs and I think it was like 2 SOL. So that's like, whatever, 7,000 times 2. And all of that yield from that SOL, 100% of the yield, 100% yielding LST goes directly to the project to fund what they're doing. So you never lose your mint price, right? And it worked really well. I mean, they pumped to like 3 SOL at some point. You could arbitrage the collection if it goes below a certain price, buy it. You can dissolve it for, cool idea, but didn't really take off. But they are taking over that they are working more on that platform now, and they're going to start pushing that more.
You mean Pathfinders?
Pathfinders, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I actually really want to use that tech for Soul Brothers.
I remember. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because the idea is like you could get people to get a Soul Brothers membership for like 1 or 2 SOL, but then they can always get that 1 or 2 SOL back. Like, why not? Like,
100%.
Doesn't go anywhere.
I think the beauty of it as well is just like what I really excited me about that platform and the idea of using LSTs and then using the yield to fund ideas. I know it doesn't sound like much, but if you are like a big project and you can get a substantial amount of people to hold that LST, you can actually make a lot of fucking money, like a lot. So it's like, I thought it would be so cool. Imagine if you were like a DeFi protocol, right? And you wanted to do like a seasoned event. You do the seasoned event, right, where everyone can mint the special NFT, right? Maybe it's 5 SOL. Maybe that boosts their yield or their points on the platform for like TGE. All that yield can be taken and used by the DeFi project to actually boost maybe a vault or like something like that. And then at the end of 2 months or 3 months or a month, the NFTs automatically dissolve and you receive your SOL back. And it's like this kind of cool thing. And you could actually do continual events like that, where it's like, let's say a Camino did it. Like, dude, I would mint that thing for 5 SOL. That's super, super cool. And it gives me maybe extra points for the next season of token drop. And, there's an addition. And maybe because you have that NFT, you are eligible to use this high yield pool because they take a portion of that revenue that they make from that LST into that pool. And other people can't access it unless they get that. So now you're creating like a crazy flywheel where all these people are wanting to hold the LST to get this additional yield. And those that actually do it are gonna get the reward. So I don't know. There's like a lot of really cool things where NFTs come into play with using LSTs. Mm-hmm. Like I know you guys did something, obviously with credit coins. It was like a really cool idea as well. Mm-hmm. I think it's just really hard to get people to like to want to use it, and it's almost like you need those like incentives, but the potential's there. Like there's a really cool little world there. You know?
And then after LilyPad, what else would I mean? There's Netrunner, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, so this is before. So before even getting to that stuff, there was even other stuff. What else did we? Okay, that was kind of some of the things we built there. So Phase Protocol, Align. Just to also end with that, it has been used now to run hackathons, the Bonkathon and the Solana Mobile Hackathon. Yeah,
my PFP is still the Bonkathon PFP. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. So that platform did evolve quite cool, actually, the V2 of it. So it actually is now can be used to run hackathons. Radiance now acquired that platform and now they use it. They did the Solana Mobile Hackathon on there. So, really, really cool. And then essentially now where we've come to is last year we were fortunate enough to be the custodians of Aeropool and start that Solana ecosystem contributor stake pool. So we support over 170 plus validators, and we've also helped educate and onboard about 35 plus node operators, like app developers, people in the ecosystem, different teams and products. Simon with Solana ID is one of them. We help them kind of learn how to get their validator set up, and they run it. So that's really been an awesome project, and that kind of like helped us, move into these other areas, right? So with Netrunner, that kind of was like the next thing that came on was it was actually originally absorbed by Radiance because, and here's a little story time as I get into the actual three products that FaZe works on, which is Aeropool, Netrunner, Sentinel. Netrunner was absorbed by Radiance, right? Because it had gotten to a stage where they just did not have the money to continually develop the platform. The product was started in 2022, right? The NFT project minted in 2022. The huge thing that basically every project did back then was hold the NFT, get access to the platform for free, which is just not a good business model. Obviously, back then it was like the norm. Royalties were obviously still around, and people were like, that was what they were gaming on, was royalties. So that kind of stifled Netrunner's growth revenue-wise, because essentially people were just sending the NFTs to each other. So even when the previous team actually brought in subscription costs, they did make about like $50,000 or something like that, like their first year doing subs, which is actually not bad considering that there's all these NFTs around. It was too late at that point, right? Like, I can tell you from experience with us building V2, the entirely new platform, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time to actually keep up with a lot of what's happening on chain. So Netrunner was a phenomenal product. It actually worked really well for a lot of people. But when we got the product, it was like we literally had to restart it. But essentially, Radiance we thought it would be better to put Netrunner under FaZe Labs, since like Radiance is kind of like I guess you could almost say a sister project that they are entirely separately run, but it's like, it just made more sense.
I think that's the biggest misconception that people have, is they think that Radiance is FaZe Labs and vice versa. But like, and don't get me wrong, you guys are all friends, and also, quite frankly, there is a little bit of cross-pollination between the two organizations, so it kind of makes sense why people would get confused, but they truly are two separate entities that are run separately with different leadership, et cetera, et cetera.
100%. So it was kind of like it was this really amazing kind of thing that we all started together, right? But the idea was always that it would get to a point where the community would kind of take over it. And Chemo obviously takes charge there. DAO helps with some admin and strategy stuff there as well still. And then I also kind of help with some marketing stuff. But really, the community has taken charge of that. Like, everyone who works on the project now are like either community members or outside source people. I'm actually really proud. My little brother Lib, he's actually he's the COO of Radiance now, and he's incredible. He's 22. The guy is a beast. He's going to be far more successful than I'll ever be. So it's really, really cool. And there's a really amazing group that's like in Radiance and really focusing on that now. But yeah, there was overlap, right? Like, we kind of like, as FaZe Labs came together to help launch it and like get it going, and like, because it was this original vision that was kind of like brought under the company, and Chemo really took it and just like made this awesome thing, and he's really the point man. Radiance, that's his thing, that's his baby.
Right. Yeah. And I'd love to talk a little bit about your background and your history now in the whole validator ecosystem, because you're quite embedded in that ecosystem by now, especially with Aeropool and with Sentinel. And when it comes to kind of the validator ecosystem on Solana right now, a lot of people, I think, are not really familiar with how that works and how it's set up. And I'd love to get your take on the current state of Solana validator ecosystem. What is working well these days when it comes to validators across all Solana? What do we need to improve on? What needs to get better, right? If we look at now, and how do you confront the argument of Solana is not decentralized enough? Like, it's still something people say nowadays. And what are your answer to these people out of your experience to kind of avoid people to fall in that trap and actually believe it?
I'm just gonna see if I can. There we go. The the camera was like blurring me, but no, great question. So I mean, I think the Solana validator ecosystem is in a pretty unique place right now. Like, it's kind of like, you think about even a year ago, it was like, oh, we need more clients, right? Like, we obviously have FireDancer out now. Obviously Jito, FireDancer, and then Anza with Agave. Incredible, like, just really, really three phenomenal clients. Especially what like, I also need to really give props to Anza, and like how much they've improved on the original Solana client. Because for anyone listening that doesn't know, like, the original Solana client was like is the same, is literally the Agave client. So it's the Anza team, and it's just like, it's just insane how much they've pushed that forward, right? In competition with FireDancer. I think more so, like, just like, it's like innovation, competition breeds innovation, right? And we in that stage now where it's just really like both those teams are just like absolutely innovating and like pushing the boundaries. And obviously Jito as well. It's just really, we're in a really good ecosystem, or a good place at the moment. But we also have all these new like clients coming out, or kind of like I wouldn't say mods, but it's like extensions maybe. Like 00 is really incredible as well, like how that's going to, increase IBL, increase bandwidth, reduce latency, whatever. I mean, they obviously aren't only going to be Solana. Like, I think they're going to, they're also going to spread their wings a little bit. But I mean, that's also just another thing that really helps to improve just like, the blockchain as a whole, and just Solana and its ability to just really be the best out there. NASDAQ level speeds. And there's also things like bulk coming now as well, which is pretty awesome, which is going to be like help us become competitive with Hyperliquid. I think that's kind of like the narrative, right? And there's also Raikou. I think it's kind of like a competitor like Jito. There's really a lot happening. Like, the validator ecosystem is heated up, and I know Eno can also give input on this, but it's like, it's pretty incredible. I think it's never been like easier to set up a validator than it is now, but it's also never been harder, because it's just like, the ecosystem is extremely competitive. There's all these DATs, there's all these other things. Like, getting and attracting stake is extremely hard, right? I think obviously the growth in stake pools on the network is a clear indication of how it's like, how that is to help kind of remedy this, and to support network growth and validator sustainability. Obviously we have Alpenglow coming as well, which is going to be like, bring down us to like 150 millisecond finality, which is like insane, and also going to reduce voting fees, which is awesome. I mean, they're obviously going to start off at like 1.6 Sol per epoch, and then going to slowly gradually bring it down, so it won't be like immediately no voting costs, but that's a significant amount of money. I think it's like 350 Sol a year that you're saving on or more, actually, I don't know, on saving on fees that a validator has to pay to vote on the network. And that's obviously going to, like, with Rotor and Voter, like the new kind of like a voting mechanism and and all that, it's pretty incredible. Like, it's just, Solana is primed to become an absolute beast of a
Bullish.
blockchain. Yeah.
Very bullish on the tech, on the underlying tech. A lot of people they see token price, they hear these news about ETFs, DATs, and all kinds of stuff, but they don't know how much work went into the actual fucking foundation of all this, right?
100%.
And it has improved so much. Is there anything what are we still lacking in the validator ecosystem? Is there anything we need to improve on, but needs to be better? How about how about the decentralization of it? How about geographies? Like, how do these things right now work out?
Also kind of curious about what you thought about SIMD 228. Like, I don't know really what side of the fence you were on, but like, yeah, would love to just get like any of your opinions about what it was like for you as like running Sentinel, like your guys' point of view on 228, diversity, do we have enough validators, geodiversification, et cetera, et cetera.
No, 100%, and great question. I mean, I think, and as like Sentinel, like, obviously a big thing that we've been pushing for is like stake decentralization as well in Solana. I mean, not that this really goes hand in hand with inflation, but there is kind of like a level to that, right? Like, I think when it comes to the reduction in inflation, I think there is a necessity for it, right? And it's going to happen, right? I think Alpenglow is going to really bring that conversation up again, and I think it's kind of naturally going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I think there are obviously positives and negatives, right? Like, the positives is, well, there's this leaky bucket theory, right? But at the same time, like, all of these players that would lose a lot of revenue, like these massive validators, that was like the problem, like, oh, we're leaking all of the Sol and everything, completely understand. But I think the problem with the proposal, right, was that it was done too hastily, and it was done like almost in a way that made the smaller validators, who were going to lose out the most, feel insignificant, right? It was like, oh, well, we're these big players and big VCs and big groups, and we're saying this needs to happen. But it's like, well, what about the back, like the foundation of the network, all these foundational validators that are like also important? It felt like they weren't really taken into account. And I think that's where the SIMD went wrong, is that it should have taken those people into account more, because it had one of the highest votes of any SIMD. I think it was like 70% like of validators voted on it, which is insane. It's like, that's crazy. That's amazing to see that level of participation on any kind of like, because any kind of DAO vote. So that was really amazing to see. But I just think that it was approached wrongly. But I do understand the need for that inflation cut. Like, I think it will have a positive effect on DeFi, right? Like, it makes it more competitive. It's very comfy now to set your SOL and stake it in a high yielding validator for 7 maybe 8%. Like, obviously on the very high end, but like, DeFi protocols can offer a really good yield, but it's still like, I think there's a lot of big whales and big players that would be like, oh, I'm comfortable just putting my SOL here because it's generating me 7.5%. But if it was only 3%, probably be a little bit more like, well, maybe I should venture out. So I don't really have the I'd say the knowledge to guess what would happen, but less inflation would be good, in the sense that, like, if you look at the market cap of Solana right now, like, we should be fucking skyrocketing. If you look at, like, compared to 2002, obviously that's or to 2022, like, obviously that's not gonna, or before, like the boom, but obviously there's more tokens in the market, but there's so much SOL being put into the market that even though we're a much higher market cap, we're at a much lower price. But honestly, if I'm to be honest, like, I don't really care as much. Like, I want to see the chain progress and evolve, and like, I think I'm here for the long term. So short-term price action is as great as it is because it pays the bills. It's also not like be all end all for me. Like, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good stance. I think the most important TLDR from this section is that the network is progressing, the tech is getting upgrades, we're getting Wall Street ready as an ecosystem, and all these big players right now that are talking on CNBC and all the fund managers, they talk about Solana, they love that story. They're saying, internet capital markets works for them, and we just need to make sure that tinkers here that are a little bit behind the curtain, that are in the deep tech, we need to make sure that this becomes reality, right? And that we actually build products on it.
I'll add to that, and that's exactly, like, that was part of the conversation that we pushed directly to the SEC. So as Sentinel, we went to the SEC.
Oh, right.
And
you guys actually met the SEC.
Yeah, we went to go speak to the crypto task force. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go, but it was Devour, Jeff, our chief product officer, Board King Gabriel, who's our head of staking, and then Dan, who's our CFO. And they went to go talk to the SEC. And we have this whole entire letter that we put out there, and it's on our Twitter. But it was really about like stake decentralization and helping to educate them. Like, they were open to it, right? Like, they were very open to what's happening on Solana. There was some of them that just didn't really. They really wanted to understand what's happening, because I mean, we know staked ETFs are coming. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, there's no way that it's not gonna happen. And I think they're just trying to understand what's going on. What is this technology? How does it work? And how can we make sure that we're on the right track with it? And also kind of push them a little bit, like, hey, don't make the same mistakes of the past, because when it comes to like stake decentralization on Solana, right, there might need to be some kind of ruling around that, or some way to prevent that, like, all the stake doesn't just go to a central 2 or 3 entities, right? Because that's not good either, right? If we have all this ETF inflow, and I don't think that's trying to be like, oh, well, like, we also want some stake, or that we want some stake, or whatever. Like, that's better if it's spread out across the network, as opposed to it being like, oh, well, here's one entity that has like 60% of ETF stake. Like, that's not good, because that's also going to screw up our like Byzantine fault tolerance. It's not going to be good for the Nakamoto coefficient. It's just not going to be positive. So I think that's a really important thing that we just have to push for, right? Is make sure that there's this stake decentralization, and it doesn't all just inflow to like 1 or 2 big players, and that just kind of like offsets the network heavily, because it could have a real effect.
Yeah. And then those ETF issuers, or even it could be a DAT that ends up accruing. I mean, Vertex is still out there to see who's going to accrue the most SOL, but then they become kingmakers, and in a sense, almost like a shadow foundation, right? Like, I'm not saying shadow in the sense that they're necessarily bad actors, just shadow in the sense that like suddenly you have to start kissing their feet, and it's like, whoa, I have to start kissing your feet because you know how to suck dick and tradfi. Like, I just don't know about that. You know, like
Yeah, literally. I mean, I think we're going to see this weird thing where you're going to see these DATs getting absorbed by larger DATs. Like it's like a trend. It's so funny because I think, when you've been in the space for long enough, and like even being in the NFT era and all that kind of thing, you can kind of apply a lot of these smaller events and things to larger things, right? Like, you see these things, that all these financial kind of events, whether it be in NFTs, meme coins, TradFi, DeFi, it's like they all kind of have like the similarity to them. They're just on a different scale, and it kind of puts it in perspective. It almost makes it a little bit more like it makes it less scary, right? Because you're like, this kind of feels like a like a meme coin like CTO takeover, or like an absorption of this product or whatever. I don't know. There's just like this weird link that I've found in my mind when I think about these things, and I'm like, oh, this kind of, I don't know. It just makes it feel less like big and scary. Like, oh my gosh, dude, these guys with millions of dollars, which I think is just a product of working in this space, right? Like, you can come into the space as someone who's like never worked in TradFi or finance or tech even, and if you just put in the work, it's a lot of work, but if you put in the work and you just really like learn from everyone around you, from people smarter than yourself, right? Because there's a lot of people here way smarter than me that are like, that I've hopefully like, absorbed some of their smartness. And you kind of just like, you start to realize things, you start to learn, and it's quite amazing, right? It's like going to college. It's like, I feel like I've been in university for the last 4 years, and it's like, yeah.
You know what's crazy, man, is that like I actually learned TradFi through crypto, right? Like I didn't learn about TradFi through like
people.
Yeah, like through finance. It's more like I learned how crypto worked. I'm like, oh, that is the same as this, and this is just the DeFi equivalent of what. That's what that meant. Like an ETF, what the fuck is that? Like I had literally zero clue what any of the terminology meant. Like how does borrow and lend work? And then you realize it's just like a debundled it's what the bank already does, right?
Yeah.
Treasury bills, like funding rates, like money, M1 supply, M2 supply, M whatever the fuck. It's but yeah, all through crypto. And I think it's I don't know, just Solana's just made it so much easier to learn more than ever before. So I really deeply, relate to what you're saying here.
Yeah,
a lot of people in crypto that are coming into crypto, getting financial literacy, or how do you say it?
Literacy.
Literacy, financial literacy. They get it from crypto, which is actually really amazing. Because that brings them. It's a super important topic. So we learn about money, we learn about economies, we learn about the world pretty much works, because we're diving into crypto, which is pretty beautiful. Now, Seb, before we wrap this up, because we're fucking time's flying here. We're almost at an hour already, and because you do so many things and you have such a rich history. So we double tapped on that. We kind of know where you came from now. I feel like we scratched the surface of everything you've done so far in the past. Barely. And we arrived at the state now with Phase Labs doing all kinds of things, with the three major things being Aeropool delegation, running Netrunner, which is a tax tool on Solana. It's right now in private beta, so people should probably keep their eyes open for next steps over there. And then with Sentinel as well. Now, I would love to just double click on one more thing before we wrap it up, and give some actionable advice to people that are in Solana, that are breaking into Solana, that think about running a project on Solana. And it's about validators, because it's a personal story as well, because we did that with your help. We set up our own validator. Would you to whom would you recommend setting up a validator nowadays? What type of founder, what type of personality on Solana or breaking onto Solana should consider running a validator? How hard is that? And how can Aeropool help? So that's just something I'd love to double tap on, because I think it's important, like valuable knowledge and advice for people out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to running a validator in the current economic climate, like of Solana, right? Like it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and your ability to attract stake. I think there are obviously quite a lot of stake pools, but they get saturated very quickly, and it becomes a lot harder for those pools to adjust their stake right across to new validators. What I'll do is I'll go with an example, because that's the easiest way to explain it. So Hilo is a client we work with under Sentinel, and they've done an insane job of attracting stake. Right? They have this incredible kind of dual LST kind of element. One Hilo Sol Plus, and then there's Hilo Sol. And what they did was they kind of created this like very kind of exciting system, and it's attracted a lot of people and a lot of stake into the validator. I'm not saying that you need to be Hilo, but I think it's kind of like you need to. What I'm trying to get at is like, if you're going to do this and you really want to push for it, there needs to be some kind of element that it can attract stake to validator. Is that like a service that you can offer? Is it a DeFi element? Is there a real like path forward for you to get stake from investors, maybe from other entities? You know, it's the game now really is trying to figure out how you can kind of navigate the ecosystem, because it is exceptionally hard to get a sticky stake. We call it sticky stake, which is just like, you know, whale stakers and things like that. Because as you get further down, you know, as Solana gets older, right? Obviously, all these people that would give the stake are kind of in their places. They're locked in their places. So have a really good plan, like a really, really well thought out plan. What can you offer people that others can't for that stake in return? And how can you kind of scale that alongside your business? How can you make it a part of your business? I think that's really important. So yeah, I would say it's probably going to be mainly like, you know, DeFi protocols and so on and so forth. But yeah.
That's what I thought. Yep. So I think the good takeaway is here that you cannot rely only on your APY, because that's not exciting anymore to anyone, because there's too much competition in the market. You cannot attract Sol to your LST or to your validator natively, just with the pitch of, hey, we're offering 7.5% APY. Like, there's too much out there that is eating away your market share. Yeah. When you have only that pitch, you need some additional incentives, and Hilo is a good example, right?
Yeah. And that's why
I'll give.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say there was a great example that Mert gave actually in the past, when he talks about like validators, and it's like, think about it as like different stores, right? Like there's all these different shops, right? So you think about Solana and the validator ecosystem, and each of them are their own shop, their own store. Like, what makes someone want to go to your store and buy your product? Like, why would someone want to come into your establishment and support you? That's what you need to think about. Is like, how can you create that value for them? Are you a Gucci? Are you an Armani? Are you a Apple store? Whatever. What are you? You know, what are you going to use to attract people to actually want to support what you're doing? Yeah. Sorry, you know, I know I cut you up.
Oh no, I was just saying that's why stake pools like Aeropool are so important, right? And it's not just Aeropool. Like 00 also has like a fucking massive stake pool now. What the motherfucking shit? They just got like another 10 million SOL from Foundation. I'm sure Seb and I were both looking at the news, just going like, what the fuck? That is crazy. But like, all jokes aside, like those stake pools are important because yes, it is true that like everyone has to find their own path. But actually, with the changes that are being made with Alpenglow, as well as the reduced cost, it's going to be easier. Seb said it perfectly, right? It's both easier and harder to run a validator than ever before. And it's because of increased competition. Like, quite honestly, like how some of these validators have been successful just in the very beginning is that they were doing it when running a validator was hard. And so therefore attracting stake was easier, especially back when, you know, Solana wasn't doing so well. And so like that, yes, not all stake is sticky, but especially if, like, let's say, like, take Pico Sol, for example, right? Like, if Pico were to have started running a validator today, I just don't know if he would have been as successful as when he had started at that time. He did it when it was difficult. He did it when it was early, when people weren't really talking about Solana as much. But the stake pools, I think, help a lot, especially for new validators who are just trying to get their foot in the door, because it's like, it takes at least 44,000 SOL to be profitable, which, like, not everybody can do that. Like, that's very difficult. Yeah.
No, 100%. I completely agree. I mean, I think it's one of those things, right, where we talk about stake decentralization, and also like, I think when you asked earlier, Simon, what are some things that we can improve is geographic distribution, which is things like 00 is helping with, and a lot of these, you know, Jag Pool and these other stake pools that are helping to push stake to geographically diverse regions, like South Africa. Let's go, baby. But yeah, so I think there's always areas that we can improve, right? But I think we're in a pretty good spot. And I did want to just end on one last thing, which was, I feel like I didn't talk about Netrunner enough. Like, check out Netrunner. We're a Solana native tax tool. Long story short, we are a new team. We took over the old project. We had to rebuild the entire app from the ground up. So it's an entirely new app. And, you know, our whole goal is to make people's lives easier to do Solana taxes. And Simon, you know, I want to get you guys on. I'd love to get your thoughts. But
yes, sir.
Yeah, listen, taxes may not be fun, but we're going to try and make it, you know, fun in some way, shape, or form, or at least not pull your hair out.
Dude, we're creating like a referral page, so we would actually really love to shill Netrunner and like maybe even like refer people to the platform. That would be sick.
Dude, 100. We can make you guys a code and everything. I mean, like, trust me, dude. We have so much cool stuff coming. We have an integration with the Sol Incinerator coming. We will have like a tax loss harvesting section powered by Sol Incinerator, which we're busy working on at the moment. We had all these updates and changes and improvements coming. And yeah, I mean, our focus is Solana. We're just going to be Solana because Solana's the best, dude. And it's also the hardest chain to do your taxes on. So let's just focus on that.
Love
anyway,
it. Yeah. Love it. It says Seb Tax Marketer on Seb's Twitter, which I love, by the way. So, which is like, it's like a controversial thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds very paradox. But if people want to learn more about yourself, I think Twitter is probably the best stop for y'all. So check out Seb Moriarty, Moriarty. You can find him on Twitter, and from there you'll also find Phase Labs, you'll find Netrunner and all the fun stuff he does. So definitely worth a follow, because as you now learned in this EP today, Seb definitely very knowledgeable about the whole Solana space, not just from looking at shit, but actually doing shit. So that is really a big shout out to you, Seb. And also thanks for sharing all this lore with us and everything about what you're doing nowadays. It was great to have you on the show, and we'll definitely have to double click on a few other things one time, dedicated to maybe only one of the topics you do. But I think that was a great overview. So thanks for that. It was great having you today. And we wish you all the best with Netrunner, with Phase Labs, with everything you do. And we'll see you at the next one.
I think we should bring Seb back on for tax season. That'd be a really good time to bring him back on.
I'll bring my CPO with, because Jeff, he's a legend. But also what I want to do is I want to get you guys on when we start our Phase Live series. Definitely want to get you boys on, because I think there's so much interesting stuff about both of you as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Simon and Eno, absolute legends. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, Seb. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you at the next one.
Love you, brother. Cheers.
See ya.